Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to part one of a life-changing, life-enriching, heart-exposing, and genuinely raw-filled conversation that we must call honor. Now, despite all the distractions and the temptations that life brings, honor demands our attention. It demands respect for God. It demands a dignified existence and a responsibility for ourselves, not just to survive, but to learn and to grow. You see, honor demands that we live in ways that allow us and those around us the greatest opportunity to thrive. Men are given honor when they demonstrate a Christ-motivated responsibility for the welfare of others. In fact, people can feel when a man of honor is in their presence. They can sense the safety and emotional security of a man that cares. Now, make no mistake. Honor is not a simple thing. Many believe honor is just a calling to greatness, and it is. But what many don't often realize is that it is first a calling to suffer. Think about all the men you know that are thought of as having great honor. Chances are that most of them earned that title because of their willingness to struggle, suffer, and sometimes even pay the ultimate sacrifice. You see, I think of people like Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for a kinder world between races, only to be assassinated for sharing his dream. I think of the multitude of men and their families, brothers and sisters, being persecuted in countries where the simple mention of Christianity could earn their immediate death. I think of people like my grandfather, who escaped from an evil political regime, nearly losing his life trying to make a better home for his family right here in America. Honor requires the willingness to suffer for the sake of others. The most honorable man in all of history, Christ himself, demonstrated this as he willingly took a mantle of suffering for the sake of all who would call him their Savior. Honor is tough, but honor is also a gift. It is the continuous opportunity to fulfill our manhood and experience its blessing. Because you see, without honor, we become spiritually and morally bankrupt. Our emotions become a constant chore. We often don't realize how much effort we actually put into avoiding honor. We spend our time complaining about our circumstances or coming up with excuses to not deal with them. We often avoid pain and discomfort at all costs, even if it costs us our relationships. Our ability to make choices and create our own results places the outcome of our lives squarely on our shoulders. And this means that we can't necessarily change our circumstances, but we can change how we respond to them. And despite all the things in life that we can't control, the attitude we choose affects our ability to think and respond in new and better ways. But when we do respond in honorable ways, well, friends, we begin to broaden our range of capabilities. We begin to gain the respect of those we lead, And if that's not enough, well, living with honor empowers us to accomplish so much more beyond our suffering, beyond what we can imagine. Despite hearing these words right now, many of you will just leave and go through your days on autopilot, falling back into the same old patterns as before. You know, we do this because it's just easier to stay comfortable, regardless of whether something is worth the effort or not. I genuinely feel for you if this is where you find yourself today, because I used to be that person too. But you have to hear me. If you are willing to do what you know is hard, if you are willing to face the struggle, if you are willing to stop reacting, start thinking, if you are willing to stop letting your emotions make foolish choices for you, well then, and only then, will you finally open your eyes and mind to a journey you never knew possible. One where your wife wants to love you, where your kids want to be with you, and your friends start to look to you. If life is less than what we want it to be, then our foolish choices need to be contained. We must be willing to struggle within the unknowns of life. You know, those moments where we cannot find definitive answers from God, and allow pain to shape our faith and resilience. Honor is given only to those who are willing to live with it, and to those who are willing to enjoy it. Maybe James, the brother of Jesus, said it best. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let's head out to the lounge. All right, guys, you kind of heard what I talked about there. One of the things that and one of the points I really wanted to make was how often we think of honor as obviously this great thing, because it is, right? It's a beautiful thing. It's something, right. It's a calling to greatness, absolutely. But we never think of what the cost is, right? That it's also a calling to suffer. Like when I think of honorable men, and I said those things, but I just think of people that you know, they went through stuff, right? They went through like a struggle. I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think like when you were mentioning, you know, when we think of honor, we think of like respect, right? Which is great, but even part of the definition of honor is also adhering to what is right. And doing so is not gonna be easy, but it is gonna require like suffering to do what is right, especially when we're living in this side of heaven.
Yeah.
Trying to honor God on this side of heaven problems are gonna come. And it seems like biblically, whenever we've seen heroes of the faith, and we see how the Lord will elevate them, right, into a certain platform. But when you look at their backstory, you know, they all went through some stuff before they were these men of honor. They all went through something, and it seems like pain or suffering is a prerequisite to honor, or a prerequisite to a platform, you know.
Yeah, you know, so obviously, I mean, I'm an actor, so I do a lot of films and stuff, and to me, story is a big deal, right? And every time I'm in front of the camera, like I'm thinking about story, and I'm thinking about preserving the purpose for why we're filming something, and I think about, like, you know, when you're talking about honor, the best are those, the most honorable men are the ones that have these incredible stories behind them, right? And we're the most interested in them. Like, because especially when you can sit down, like, we've all met, it's been about 48 hours from this point ago, is when some of us have met for the first time. And honestly, I feel like, we've all gelled, we've connected, and I love it. But I love hearing all of your stories. Like, when we sat down dinner the first night, you didn't even get a chance to check in your hotel, and you went straight to go see us. But I remember you telling us about, where you grew up and where your background was. And I'm like, man, we just brought in like the perfect dude because it's a man of honor, right? And I'm not throwing this title on you as praise, but I kind of am too, because, our backgrounds matter. But I just feel like those stories are the most enticing, the ones that really get us the most when we meet men of honor.
And I'll caveat to that. I'm just thinking, when I was this fresh butter bar in the military, and I was walking down the hall with a full bird colonel that invited me to a meeting that we're supposed to go to. I ran back down the hall. I said, I'll be right back, because I left my pen in my notebook. Anytime you're in a military meeting, you want that stuff.
Yeah.
And I finally get my stuff, and I hustle it back across towards the meeting room. And as I'm getting ready to cross the threshold, I think a lieutenant colonel came up to me and said, "Hey, LT, what are you doing here?" And he like blocked me from crossing the threshold. And I was like, I'm with the full bird in there. And he was like, get out of here. You're not supposed to be here. And then I was like discouraged. I was getting ready to walk away. And all of a sudden, the full bird comes out. He's like, he's with me. And all of a sudden I rejoiced, and he let me in the room. But I think about, like, man, because of this full bird who had so much time in the service and sacrificed his life for so long, I don't know what kind of suffering he went through, but I'm sure he went through so much suffering and sacrifice. Now he was a man of honor that made a way for someone who was not so much honorable, because I haven't really went through nothing. But I went back to that story, right? That's honor.
But even that position of him, right, as a colonel, right, you may not know his story in detail, or we may not know the story in detail, but understanding the structure in the military, you don't just sign up and enlist, and all of a sudden the next day, hey, you're a colonel.
Yeah.
It's a process, right? It's a journey.
That's
so
right.
regardless of knowing the detail, we know that he had to go through some stuff to finally get to that position.
100%.
What I struggle with is, you mentioned in the segment about how honor demands respect, and you have to go through suffering, but yet we interact with men all the time who demand respect without going through the suffering to get honor. And when we want that instant gratification, we want that instant thing, but yet, like you said, you read through the Bible, there's nothing that tells you a man of honor who did not suffer.
That's
and
right.
Yet we want to be men of honor without suffering.
Wow.
So when you made that statement about that honor demands respect, I said to him, why do we demand respect before we get the honor? And I always struggle with that, because I've seen a lot of men get in trouble, lose their lives over demanding respect without being honorable men.
Wow.
But you really can't learn without going through a certain amount of discomfort. I hate to say this, but if I look back on my life, it's the pain or the mistakes I made that taught me way more than the easy route.
That's right.
And so to me, the only way to get honor is to go through a time of discomfort whereby you're tested and you face your failure. And at that moment, then you have a choice. Do I back off from my failure and just define myself as a person that gives up and never can have honor? Or do I find something within me to seek God's help so that I can overcome that failure and start to redefine myself? And there's guys out there that the minute you said honor, they hit the off switch. Right. Because that seems so far away from them.
Unattainable.
And yet that's not reality. God sees them as honorable. A couple of years ago, so I want to take just a second and sell you guys each a franchise in my chicken restaurant. Okay?
Oh boy, here we go. Call it Roy Filet.
All right. So you each are in. I'm going to sell you the franchise cheap. But let me explain it to you. I have a secret recipe for chicken sandwiches. Okay? And what you do is you find a nice building along an interstate, hopefully that nobody kind of comes back again. Okay, so you get everybody one time, all right, and they come in and then you sell them your sandwiches. And if I gave these sandwiches to you, you'd take them home and you give them to your friends and your family and you chomp down on it, and the inevitable happens. You look at this, you look and you go, wait a minute, my chicken sandwich doesn't have any chicken in it. Okay? And you bring back your thing, and I'd say, well, wait a minute, that's my secret recipe. In fact, I actually make a lot of money selling sandwiches without chicken. And then you're going to look at me and say, how can you sell me a chicken sandwich without chicken? All right, that's not right. And one night when I was praying, God gave me this story. And he said, go sell those men those franchises. And then when they come up and want to kill you, okay,
Right.
because they're buying chicken sandwiches without chicken, you tell them there is no such thing as a man without honor.
Come on.
And the reason why I make men with honor, even the guys that say it's too far from me, the reason I do that is because I made you in my image.
That's right.
I could have made you a hippo and a wide variety of other ugly things.
Yeah.
Okay? But I made you in my image. And that's the basis upon which all the rest of us getting honor is built upon. If we connect up with that image, we now recognize the honorable aspects we've been called to.
Wow.
You know, but I think men are intimidated, like you say about turning the switch off. I think they're intimidated because they think, well, I've done so many dishonorable things
Yeah.
that I can never get that honor back. I think one of my most honorable moments was after I was dishonorable. I remember having to go through a painful divorce, and we had to tell my son, and he was only like 9 years old at the time. And he literally passed out after we told him. And it was my fault because of the divorce. My wife just said she couldn't take it anymore. And we were trying to present a united front to tell him, and he passed out. I didn't even know black kids fainted. I'd never seen a black kid faint before. But he fainted, and we had to bring him to. And with tears in his eyes, he looked at us and he says, can't God fix this?
Ooh.
Wow. Wow.
What do you tell a 9-year-old who asks you, can't God fix this? And of course, I'm thinking I done blew up the marriage. I'm looking at his mom to say something. And it was probably the most painful and difficult day of my life, but I turned it into an honorable moment. Because she didn't say anything, and he's looking at me, looking at her with tears in his eyes, and I looked at him, I said, yes, he can fix this.
Yeah.
I said, but we're too selfish to let him.
Wow.
I said, don't you blame God for this, you blame your daddy. I said, I hope one day you can forgive me. And the worst day of my life was probably the most honorable days of my life, because he never forgot that I was willing to say, no, I'm gonna take responsibility.
Yeah.
And I didn't look at it being an honorable thing to do at the time. I just thought, this kid demands an answer, and I'm not gonna throw God under the bus because of something that I did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, so I think a lot of men, they back off honor because they keep thinking, well, I'll never get it back.
What you shared, that story is so powerful, because for that man that says honor is so far from me, he's viewing his dishonor, his self-demeaning behavior, whatever it is, in a bucket. And he's so down in the hole, he can't get out of the bucket.
Yeah.
Okay? And between dishonor and honor is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's not, I'm in the hole and I work my way out of the hole to honor. The only way is through the door of forgiveness, accepting Christ's forgiveness of you so that you can start again, so that you're not making up for the past, because that is basically still the past controlling you. It is building upon your future, upon a strong thing. Not, I now work my way out of it, but because of what Christ did for me,
Yeah.
I'm going to start again.
Yeah, I guess honor isn't just something you like achieve and then all of a sudden that's it, like it's a state or a destination, but rather it's really something you continue to live and you continue to demonstrate, right? And we see it through Christ, we see it through other people as well.
Yeah.
And really, if we're going to talk about the pain and the struggle, it's really how we bounce back, or what we do with all the dishonorable things and going through the struggle, whether it's, making amends or whether it's just, finding ways to move on. But whatever that is, as long as you're doing it with Christ, honor begins to show itself. And like what you said, you can turn that moment around, and it was a great moment. Painful as all get out, right? I mean, that's hard. And then the struggle, I'm sure, of having to move forward from that point. But in that, to be able to look back, praise God. So that's another thing about honor.